Hello and a very warm welcome to this week's Elite Audio video. And as promised, our 3-week hiatus is over and here I am back in front of the camera talking to you about my favourite and most passionate subject of any subjects or any things that I'm interested in, which is all things hi-fi related. And this week is quite, I would say, a very topical subject, especially right after the Munich high-end audio show that finished last weekend. And in fact, it's the last time that the high-end audio show will be at Munich, because next year it's moving to Austria and Vienna for the location. But it actually made me think, having been there many, many times, whether or not hi-fi shows are generally still worth it in their current format. And actually what's interesting, I noticed that Darko has posted a very similar video this week on the identical topic, which is quite fascinating. And if you're interested, please take a look. Darko's videos are great anyway, so I'd highly recommend you subscribe to his channel if you've not done so already. However, he himself raises the exact same topic, and I want to delve a bit deeper into this because this is not all just about surface level. It's more about the actual part of being there, what the experience is like, and does it actually contribute anything meaningful if, for example, you're in the market right now to buy a new piece of audio equipment. So in other words, does attending a hi-fi show make that decision easier, or does it perhaps simply create some confusion? So I have some statistics from Munich which gives you some kind of idea. Munich show drew over 22,000 visitors, which is a huge number, and more than 500 exhibitors. Now, logically, if you were there for 2 days, it would be impossible to see all 500. So then how do you decide which ones you want to see? Now, I guess a lot of you will turn up at hi-fi shows with a short list of manufacturers or brands that you're interested in listening to or at least seeing. And actually it was interesting, in Darko's video he said that he was in 20 rooms over 2 days and would only write about 10 of those. So that's a tiny percentage of all the exhibitors that were actually there. The other point, particularly with Munich, less so about our UK domestic shows, is that Munich is primarily, I would say, the means by which manufacturers can test the reaction to almost prototype models, because a lot of the items that are on display at Munich and have been for years are generally not finished, not market ready, you don't know the price of them, and the launch dates become very vague, shall we say. And we've experienced that where a manufacturer says, for example, we have this new DAC coming out, we anticipate it's going to be, let's say, August. August comes and goes, the end of the year comes and goes, you're into March, April the following year, almost when you have another Munich event, in which case it will be Austria. And then, and only then, almost an entire year later, does the product arrive with pricing, maybe some specification changes and so on. So again, that almost dilutes the benefit of going to Munich. The other biggest issue, which I know from our experience of doing Bristol this year, and in fact other shows we've done, and I've been to many shows, and Munich itself, the noise is incredible. I mean, it is deafening. I think if you were exposed to that level of noise in your day-to-day working environment in a week, you would probably have some damage to your hearing. So literally you can walk into a room, the room's packed. So first of all, getting through the door becomes an issue, then trying to find a seat becomes an issue, then there are people talking all around about you, because that's commonplace. People are chatting, they're talking to the exhibitors. So when you then eventually find a seat, and even let's assume it's in the what you would call the prime listening spot, the noise pollution around you literally makes that whole process almost pointless. Because let's be honest, if you were trying a new component at home and you had it on home trial, you would not evaluate it with a television playing in the background with, let's say you had some friends in there chatting away, or your children have got friends in and they're playing or making a noise or doing their own thing. It would make that evaluation process impossible. Yet, for some reason, when we attend a HiFi show, we find all of that acceptable. I know when we did Bristol, we had some fairly major issues with the noise coming from the exhibitor next door. It was so loud that when you were sat in our room, it was actually louder than the system we were playing, which you were right in front of. And if you know about how sound loses its dB value over distance, you will know that that means that in his room, the noise must have been deafening. I mean, I shudder to think what the SPL level was, but it was absolutely huge. And around the corridors, people are chatting, you can hear the noises coming from each and every room. And I know I'm not painting a very positive picture here of HiFi shows, because there is a certain buzz about them that's kind of addictive, that, you know, there are lots of products, lots of exhibitors, lots of manufacturers, and it's a kind of a sensory overload. And if it's something you're passionate about or interested in, just seeing them sometimes is, I would say, food enough to fuel that passion even further. But I guess, you know, as I say, the crowding becomes an issue, and you know, even where you stand in the room can actually have a significant impact on what you hear, because as we know, bass and frequency modes change as you walk through the convergence of sound waves. So you could, for example, walk into a room, stand in a particular spot where bass is amplified unnaturally, so which you wouldn't have heard in the normal listening position. But that could then impact on what you perceive and your perception of how good that system is, purely on that fact that you could not get into the correct listening position. And I guess what it does highlight or reinforces is that working with a very good professional, new word I just invented there, a professional, you'll see where it came from in a second, I merged two words into one, a professional and knowledgeable, which then becomes professionable. Everybody knows that word, it'll be in the Oxford English Dictionary next issue. So a very professional, I'm going to stick with that word now, audio dealer who can give you the advice, he can listen to what your needs and requirements are, and then make a recommendation. But more importantly than any of those things, he has the ability to let you try it at home. And that's where it all becomes relevant from that perspective. But I was chatting to Graham, our marketing manager, about this yesterday, and Graham, he had an idea that maybe perhaps a different type of format for a HiFi show might be more relevant, particularly now. And I guess on the face of it, some of this thinks that's a good idea, but then maybe less so when you consider other elements. The way a HiFi show works right now is you have the show organizer. They book the venue and then they recruit the exhibitors, either manufacturers, distributors, or in some case dealers, to exhibit at these shows, and the cost is high. So once all the exhibitors have paid their money, the show organizer, everything's fine there, because he's now received the funds that he needs to generate, and it has to be a profit, it's a business, on the booking of the venue and then the subsequent marketing of it. And sometimes the marketing can be good, indifferent, or exceptionally poor, leaving the responsibility to the exhibitors, distributors, manufacturers, and dealers to promote the show through their own social media and their own marketing outlets. But if you consider it or compare it to something like a music festival, the exhibitors there pay for the bands, and in this case that would be the exhibitors, to come along and essentially entertain the audience. And in essence, that is what, when you go to a music festival like Glastonbury, for example, you're paying for the entertainment and the experience. And in some ways, if we can get a format that reflected that part of it, but the key to all of this, and interestingly, again, it's something Darko touched on, is that to make it relevant and make it interesting, it should always be about A-B comparisons. So when you walk into any manufacturer room, you'll see their products. They are showcasing their products, but what you're not being given the opportunity to do at any hi-fi show is to A-B two different products of a similar price, playing the same music, same source in the same room, so you yourself can actually hear the difference from product A to product B. And that is really what this is all about, because ultimately what you and I and everybody that's interested in audio equipment is what's best for me. What is going to sound best in my room? What am I going to go, yes, I'm so glad I made that decision. That was the right choice for me, my room, my music, and the rest of my system. And it's irrational, I guess, to think that you could do that simply by attending a hi-fi show. In fact, it would be if you were to write down all the logical and rational ways that you can choose hi-fi equipment, I will guarantee that using reason and logic, a hi-fi show wouldn't even be on that list. You might go there to see the aesthetics of the product, but it will never ever let you hear how good it is in your own system. And again, reiterating what I said at the start of this video, that is where working with a professional and knowledgeable hi-fi dealer will give you the ability to do those comparisons, having them fully understood what you need. And that gives me a great segue, as always, into our own showroom event, which is coming up very quickly. It is 2 weeks on Saturday. So full details up on screen right now. Please put it in your diary and please come along. Why? Because the whole basis of what we will be doing on that day is A-B comparisons from a range of manufacturers, where there is no placebo taking place, where there is no hype, there is simply music, listening, and decision or choice. And it's fun. I mean, we've now stuck with this format. I think this will be the third time we've done this, and the feedback has always been great, because going right back through the whole point of this video, having the ability to compare like for like, same room acoustics and the same source equipment, particularly for loudspeakers, for example, that means you're making a choice based on what you hear. You won't know what you're listening to, but once the voting has been cast, we will then inform you which you chose for the best sound and the pecking order of the equipment that you were listening to, which is great fun, and it sometimes generates shock surprises, as we've had before. So there's going to be 3 different categories that you will be comparing over the day. Loudspeakers, so we will have speakers from Audio Solutions there, and if you've not heard of Audio Solutions, simply look at one of Terry Ellis's Pursuit Perfect System videos, because he has reviewed the Figaro M2s and they ultimately became his reference speaker and won his Loudspeaker of the Year award last year, and rightly so. They are phenomenal. We will also have speakers from Revival Audio, and we will have, for the first time ever available to listen to in the UK, the brand new Atalante Evo 7s. The pair that we are exhibiting are still currently with HiFi News, so fingers crossed that there are no delays in getting them back here. Paul Miller is writing a review on these as we speak. We will also have speakers from Diora Acoustics, who are a brand new Polish brand. The fit and finish is incredible. They do lots of OEM work for some very well-known manufacturers who I can't name, but let's say if I told you them, you would instantly know who they are. So they have a lot of experience building, putting together and tuning speakers for other companies, but this is their own range. And we will also have from an Italian company called Odell a pair of their speakers, which are very special indeed, all handmade, very clever design in terms of the electronics and indeed the physical layout of driver cabinet design, very, very clever. The biggest comparison this year will again be streamers and sources, because it's still the most relevant category and it is the category we sell the most products. So in not any particular order, we will have products from SOTM, Eversolo, Wim, Blue Sound, HiFi Rose, Luxman, Exact, Aqua and Lindemann. And that's a huge range of manufacturers and all at different price points, blind testing. You'll have knockout rounds, the winner goes through to the next round and so on, and then we'll have an ultimate all-round winner, the same with loudspeakers. And finally, which will be later in the day, we will demystify the black art of cabling, and we will get you to compare cabling, which will be based on an XLR cable from, say, around £300 up to about £3,000, to see if you can hear a difference from cable A, cable B and cable C. And that will perhaps either reaffirm your skepticism or indeed dismantle that into something that you recognise as cables actually do make a difference. So it's going to be a fun day. I love our showroom events. They're great because it's a very relaxed atmosphere. We have Wildfire Pizza, as always, providing the sustenance and nourishment you will need to have the energy to be able to hear properly in order to decide which of the things you're listening to sounds the best. And pizza clearly is the food of choice for all great audiophiles. And as always, the feedback we've had about Wildfire Pizza has been incredible. Hence, they have been our go-to pizza supplier for our showroom events. I have got my fingers crossed the weather is going to be good. We are heading into a week of unsettled weather, so I'm hoping in the longer term forecast that recovers to the weather we've got outside right now, which is absolutely scorchio. So let's, fingers crossed, and I really genuinely hope you can make it. I'll put the details on screen again, but put it in your diary. It's a great day out. It's a beautiful area as well. If you've not visited this part of the country, the East Neuk of Fife is simply breathtakingly beautiful, with incredible picturesque fishing villages along the East Neuk. As I say, the best, probably the best fish and chips you will find anywhere in the UK. So for that part alone, it's worth making a trip up and perhaps making a weekend of it with our HiFi festival built in between the arrival and when you leave, perhaps on a Sunday. One other favour to ask is always, if you enjoy our video content, another new word I've invented, if you've enjoyed our video content and indeed the video this week, please take a few seconds to like and subscribe to our channel. It really genuinely means a great deal to us here. And it means we know you're enjoying it, so we'll keep producing new material, and we've got other exciting things planned for later in the year. So that kind of wraps it up. I'd be really interested to know your comments. If any of you have been to HiFi shows, please post in the comments below. What was your experience? Was it good? Was it bad? Was it kind of in the middle? What did you like about what you saw or heard, and what things would you personally want to have different in terms of future HiFi shows? It'll be useful for us, particularly as we are looking to exhibit at the Ascot high-end show, which is towards the end of the year, and that might help us come up with some ideas that would reflect what it is that you want from such an event. So thank you very much indeed for watching this video. I genuinely appreciate the fact and the feedback you give me through direct emails, which actually, before I go, again, a lot of people have taken me up on this, and I really appreciate the challenge at times. If you are looking for some advice, I don't care where you live, I will give it completely from my own experience, perspective, and my knowledge of putting together high-end audio systems. Please send me an email. Here's my direct email address. I honestly do love the emails you've sent, and the feedback I've had about the advice has been phenomenal. So thank you so much indeed. If you're watching right now, you will know who I'm referring to, because you're smiling right now, because you know exactly what I'm talking about. So thank you very much again. And as always, have a great time listening to music. It is one of the best ways to feel connected, alive, and do something that makes you feel that emotional response when you hear a fantastic piece of music on an amazing audio system. Thank you so much for watching. Please take care, and I will speak to you again very soon.